Hello, hello. So just to be mindful of everyone's time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our special guest. Hello, everyone. I'm Amalia. I'm a senior children's librarian at the Maplewood Memorial Library. So happy that you guys could tune in today. Today we have a special program called KidPower, and this is a series of workshops that are created and presented by talented kids and teens in our community. And I want to welcome back Mr. Ahadu Chase. He is a creative and artistic homeschooled 14-year-old Orange resident, and he will be attending Montclair Kimberly Academy High School in the fall. Congratulations. He is a phenomenal djembe drummer who has performed with Umoja Dance Studio and is a current drummer for Zawadi Dance Group, where he recently performed in Fayetteville, North Carolina's first annual Juneteenth celebration. In 2019, he performed in Savion Glover's Tap Dance Kid at NJ Pack. He performed as the understudy to the main character, Willie. Amazing. He has also been a regular presenter at the Maplewood Library for the past several years, and as a developing tap dancer or hoofer under the training of Maurice Chestnut, he performed in a campaign PSA for the now Westward Councilman of the City of Newark, Dupree Kelly. So let's give an applause for Ahadu. And without further ado, I'm going to turn, actually before I do that, I'm going to enable the Q&A. So if you have a question that you think of, go ahead and send it through. I'm going to record the program. That's why we're not showing all of our faces. So if you want to watch later on, you can. And we'll take the questions at the end.
Right. So welcome everybody. Again, my name is Ahadu Chase. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys and presenting something about snakes. I have always enjoyed snakes and reptiles since I was 2. I've always wanted one. I've always studied and learned about them. So today I'm sharing my knowledge here with you. So let's get started. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can everybody see the screen? Can everybody see the screen share?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so Snakes 101. So today what we're going to be learning about, the different species of snakes, the characteristics of snakes, the different snake features, and more about other reptiles, how to take care of a snake as a pet, and much more. One of the main species of pets, one of the main venomous species of pets, species of snakes, is the elapids, which we will talk about a little bit later. Next up, we have the constrictors, which are really well known for being some of the biggest, heaviest snakes in the world. We have the viper, which is also another common species of snakes that are venomous. And the colubrids, which is the common species of snake that you might find in your backyard. So let's talk more about elapids. Elapids consist of some of the most venomous snakes in the world. These snakes are very, very dangerous. These snakes consist of black mambas, green mambas, cobras, kraits, coral snakes, and taipans. The most famous elapid snake is the cobra, with its hood and death of a bite. It is one of the most largest and dangerous of the family. Elapids all have fangs. They don't retract like viper fangs do, but they provide a powerful venom. Elapids all use neurotoxic venom. Elapids all use neurotoxic venom, which means this venom can shut down your nerves and shut down your whole body in a matter of seconds. So let's go over some elapids. So this is the green mamba. The green mambas are extremely venomous, and their bites can shut down breathing really quickly. Without antivenom, the chances of surviving a bite are pretty low. These are usually found in Asia and are really really dangerous. So if you go to Asia maybe and spot one of these, please keep your distance because the chances of surviving is really low. This is a coral snake, one of the part of the elapid family. Coral snakes, but unlike most venomous snakes, the coral snake's venom cannot be retracted and are relatively weak. The coral snake's venom is highly toxic and even more potent than a rattlesnake. Yet, thanks to their fixed fangs and their tiny mouth, coral snakes cannot easily penetrate through human skin, primarily through leather boots, if you're walking in leather boots. As you can see, coral snakes have these bands and they have a pretty small head. Now, this coral snake is going to be a prime example of something that we're going to talk about later. But I want all of you to take a look at the coral snake and take a look at the patterns and kind of memorize this pattern real quickly because we're going to go back to it. Okay. Next up, we have the black mamba, which is again in the mamba family, like the green mamba. Black mambas are very venomous, just like the green mambas. They're actually a little bit more venomous than green mambas. If you get bitten by a black mamba, the chances of surviving with anti-venom is even lower chances than getting bit by a green mamba. After 1 hour, if you are lucky, you probably get in a coma. You could be comatose. And by 6 hours without an antidote, you're dead. And this is only for people that are, lucky to even last an hour or 6 hours with the black mamba. Here's the most famous one, the cobra. This is an Indian cobra. Cobras, they can destroy the outer membrane of capillary vessels and cause internal bleeding if you get bitten by one. Cobras can also cause a coma, and without antivenom, of course, death. In some cases, they can also activate blood clotting system, causing clots around the circulatory system. These also have the ability to block blood vessels and induce a stroke or a heart attack. That's why in India, many deaths are actually caused to cobras. Cobras are usually found, as with most elapids, except with the exception of coral snakes, cobras are usually found most of Asia and maybe a little bit of Africa. This is a king cobra. Again, it's another species of cobra. Now, king cobras are the biggest elapids. They're the biggest cobras. Some scientists and researchers say that king cobras are not actually cobras and are their own species or subfamily of elapids. But as you can see, looking at his head here, they are very big and they can get to around 20 to 23 feet long, and their venom is very dangerous, as with most cobras. This is another example of an Indian cobra. As you can see, the hood and the fangs. As you can see, cobra fangs are actually pretty long. So if you get bit by one, it's definitely going to penetrate through the skin. Let's talk about our next species of snake, is the constrictors. The constrictors consist of some of the biggest and heaviest snakes in the world. Constrictors are non-venomous, so you don't have to be afraid if you get bitten by one. They constrict and squeeze their prey to death instead of a deadly bite like elapids or vipers. And this family or species consists of pythons and boas. Keep in mind, all families have subfamilies. So, for example, python and boa are their own families within the constrictor family or species. Most pythons and boas are kept as pets since they're the most docile and easy to maintain out of all constrictor species. Here is a common boa, usually found in South America. This is also very common as a snake pet, which we will get into a little later on. These can get around 13 feet. So if you're looking to get one as a pet, now you know. Again, quick disclaimer, as far as pets go, all snakes, females are larger than males, so it's a sex deformity, but females are always larger than males. So female common boa constrictors can get up to 13 feet. As in the name, constrictors, pythons, or boas constrict their prey instead of like elapids, which bite their prey and use their venom to kill. These snakes are some of the biggest. That's why, and they're some of the biggest because they have to constrict. And in order to constrict, their body must be bigger than their prey and have a lot of muscle. This right here is a rainbow boa, also a common pet. As you can see, they're called rainbow boas because their scales kind of look like a rainbow, and their scales are what they're called iridescent, which means they reflect light off of the sunlight, which gives you the iconic red, green, purple, and rainbow colors. These boas can get around 7, maybe 10 feet long. They're very pretty docile if you're thinking about getting as a pet, but never want to take a animal of any kind out of the wild and keep it as a pet. Here is one of the most famous pet snake in the world, I believe. This is the ball python. They can get around 5 to 6 feet. This is a yellow one, but fun fact about the ball python is that they come in all different shapes and sizes. If you get a ball python as a snake, you can consider yourself royal because the ball pythons found in West Africa were also worn as jewelry by kings and queens in West Africa. And they're also called ball pythons because they like to curl up in a ball. Next up, we have the green tree boa. Now, some people might mistake this for the green tree python, which is also a thing, but this is a green tree boa because if you look here closely, this black part right here is actually a nostril, and pythons don't have nostrils, they have heat pits. But this is a green tree boa, usually found in South America. Most of these snakes of the constrictor family are found in South America, with the exception of the ball python. And these snakes, they can get around the size, maybe smaller of a common boa, around 10, maybe 12 feet. I would not suggest this keeping as a pet, although I believe you can keep a green tree python and a green tree boa as a pet. I would not recommend it because they're not too common, and so they still might retain some of the wild essence. And all snakes are not fully domesticated like dogs are to say, they won't retain their kind of wild instincts, but it's more so with something like a green tree boa or python than a ball python or common boa constrictor because these are less popular. Here, this is the most famous, I think one of the most famous constrictors or boa constrictors is the anaconda. The anaconda is the heaviest snake in the world. The heaviest it can weigh up to is around 550 pounds. Now, many people might not think that anaconda is a constrictor and might think that the anaconda is its own kind of family, a species, but it's actually a constrictor in the boa or boidae family. There's two there are two types of anacondas. You have the green anaconda, and you also have the yellow anaconda. The green anaconda, as I have here, is more popular. Now, these are some of the heaviest snakes in the world, and they're pretty fast. These can swim underwater, and they're very dangerous. So, if you go to, oh, somebody raised their hand. Elizabeth. I'll come back to that. Oops. If you ever encounter an anaconda in the wild or even somewhere like a zoo or something like that, just be very careful because these things are very dangerous. Let's talk about vipers. Vipers consist of or one of the well-known snakes found in North America, consisting of rattlesnakes, copperheads, adders, vipers, and much more. They're the only venomous snake that has retractable fangs. So when they want to go bite some prey, their fangs will retract from under the roof of their mouth. Their venom targets muscles and may take a little longer to kill you than a lapid bite. Vipers are all over the world, unlike elapids, which are mostly found in Asia, or constrictors, which are mostly in North and South America. Vipers are, most commonly in North America, but there is a even group of vipers in South America, Africa, and Asia. And I believe there's only like a few species in Europe. So this is the common viper. This is usually found in North America. Common vipers are very venomous. Like I said, the venom targets your muscles, shut those down so that you can't move, and then starts targeting places like your heart or your brain, stuff like that. These can get around almost the same size as a common boa constrictor, 12, 13 feet long, and they're very deadly. You might find a common viper in, let's say, Arizona in a desert, or some place really hot and dry, not that humid. So mostly places like maybe Utah, Arizona, Nevada, in that kind of area there. Here's one of the most common vipers is the most popular viper, the rattlesnake, which with its rattle. Rattlesnakes are found where common vipers are found, again, Arizona, Utah, deserts, Grand Canyon, and that type of area. These are very dangerous. Rattlesnakes can get about 15 feet long. This is a diamondback rattlesnake. There's actually more subspecies of rattlesnakes than you think. It's not only the diamondback. You have the eastern diamondback, a western diamondback, and many other species of rattlesnakes, and they can get as big as around 16, 17 feet, and as small as to about 10 feet. So these are very dangerous. If you ever encounter one of these, please stay back, and it will let you know that it probably does not want to mess with you, and don't mess with it with its rattle. A cool and fun fact about snakes is that snakes are more scared of humans than we are scared of snakes. So a snake, like let's say you encountered a rattlesnake going on a hike in Arizona or something. The rattlesnake's first instinct is not to attack you. And venomous snakes have less instincts to attack humans, or more scared, because it takes a lot of energy to produce venom and bite. And let's say it strikes and it misses. That was a lot of venom wasted and a lot of energy to produce that venom from the venom glands. So knowing that, and knowing that humans are a lot bigger than they are, they don't want to mess with you. And like, let's say a rattlesnake, for example, it'll rattle its tail telling you, hey, please back off. I don't want to deal with you, and I don't want you to deal with me. And if you try, I am venomous and I can kill you. So I will bite you. Something like that. So snakes are more scared of us than we are scared of them. That's why when you see a snake, you don't really have to panic that much, because you can know in the back of your head, this snake is probably more scared of me than I'm scared of it. So we can go our separate ways and, live our lives peacefully. This is a common adder. Adders are a lot smaller. The smallest an adder can get is around 5-6 feet, around the same size as ball python, and the biggest they can probably get is around 10-12 feet. Adders are pretty venomous right off the gate. If you experience, or adders are a lot easier or more common to find as a baby than an adult. If you see a baby adder, don't even think, oh, it's a baby, so the venom is not going to be as powerful. Their venom is really powerful, enough to at least paralyze you as a young baby. And as they get older, paralyze you, shut down your heart, shut down your brain, shut down your lungs, shut down a lot of different things. So please don't underestimate different snakes. Adders can usually be found in Asia, some in Europe, and I believe in 1 or 2 species in Africa. Excuse me. This is a horned viper. As you can see, as the horns usually found in North America in the dry climates, again, like the rattlesnake and the common viper, in sandy areas, so like a desert. They use their horns to dig under the sand, and also use that to fend off of predators, making them look bigger and stronger. But they usually use this to dig and hide and bury themselves in the sand. This right here is a tree, or also known as the leaf viper. This viper can be found in South America, Africa, Asia. It's not really known to be in North America that much. The leaf viper comes in many beautiful colors and different things. I've seen a blue, there's red. As you can see, this is kind of green, kind of navy blue. So they come in a variety of different colors and sizes. These vipers like to live up in the trees, as you can kind of see here. This is a tree. They like to live up in the trees and the leaves and different things like that. And they like to use, like this one, could use their color to camouflage as a dead or drying out leaf. These vipers, again, are, most of the vipers are similar to each other, so similar to the rattlesnake and different things like that, as far as venom and size go. And so all vipers are very dangerous, but these are not really common to, make an encounter because they usually live up in the trees. So you don't really have to worry about that unless it falls on top of your head, which is very rare. This is also a tip nose viper. I believe it's called. Again, most vipers are around the same size span of, maybe 10 to 13, maybe 20 feet at max. And their venom usually shuts down muscles and different things like your heart and your brain or your lungs or different things like that. As far as compared to an elapid, which usually their venom usually focuses things on blood, nervous system, and different things like that. Some elapid venom or some snakes, if they bite you, can cause to mess up with your neuron functions in your brain, as far as your neurons. So all of these snakes are very, very dangerous. I wouldn't suggest that you even ever try to attempt. I don't think any human would, but even ever try to attempt to mess with them or anything like that. Now, there is one thing I want to say about these venomous snakes is that if you want to go into animal preservation or something to do with the animal and you have a license, in some states, like mainly the most common state is Florida, you can keep venomous snakes like cobras and rattlesnakes and different things like that, but you must have a license. And if that's something you want to do, you'll go to college and go to specific special schools and different things like that to get a license or stuff like that. So you can actually keep some of these as quote unquote pets. I wouldn't call it a pet, but that's only if you have a license or something like that. Let's talk about colubrids. Now, colubrids are the largest family of snakes, consisting of corn snakes, grass snakes, garter snakes, milk snakes, hognose snakes, ladder snakes, king snakes, rat snakes, and a whole bunch more. These snakes would be the typical snakes that you might find in your backyard or the park or the forest, the tiny little skinny snakes that you might find. These snakes are also all over the world. There are many colubrids in Asia. There are many colubrids in Africa, Europe, South America, and North America. They aren't venomous since they don't have venom glands, but some species of colubrid have toxic saliva, but most are non-venomous to humans. Like the garter snake, which is technically venomous, but to a lot of people keep them as pets because since their saliva is not harmful to humans. So this right here is a king snake. The largest they get is around, I'd say, 10 feet. Largest they get. Again, these are non-venomous. You can keep the king snake as a pet. One of the most common ones, the California king snake, found in California, as the name is. And these snakes are really not hard to handle. They're really small. They're not that much. This is a grass snake, which this is a common snake that you might find in your backyard. I found many of these in my big backyard. Sometimes birds can, might feast on these. These are pretty small, only getting to around maybe like 3-4 feet. And they're really manageable if you want to get like a beginner pet, since they're so small and they're not that much to maintain as compared to maybe a king snake or ball python or a boa constrictor. They're a lot easier. Here is a garter snake, which is even smaller. The most they get is around 3 feet. Again, I found these in my backyard, and there's a forest behind my backyard. Found these in there. You can find these really common. You can really get these as pets. Garter snakes are, I'd say, some of the more social snakes. As you can see, if you ever see pictures of, or if you ever see large groups of small snakes migrating or they're about to hibernate, most likely those snakes were garter snakes. And these are probably some of the only snakes that you can get as a pet. You can get like 2 or 3 or 4 in one enclosure because they're kind of social. This is a milk snake. Oops. This is a milk snake. As you can see, if you still remember what the coral snake looks like, as you can see, the milk snake looks a lot like the coral snake, and that's for a reason, which we'll get into and when we talk about different snake features. But you can also keep these as a pet. Again, like the king snake, these are a little bigger than garter snakes and grass snakes. These can get to around 5-6 feet, maybe, most likely. And yes, very inexpensive and very easy to maintain. These are not, you might not honestly find these in your backyard, but they are very pretty common in certain places. This is a hognose snake, which you can also keep as a pet. Again, this is about the same size as a coral snake, 4, 5, and 6 feet. Hognose snakes can be pretty moody. Sometimes they snort in a way and make a hog sound, and they also have hog nose, as you can see here. These snakes, don't be afraid if you keep if you have this as a pet. Don't be afraid if it looks like they're dead, because they like to play dead. They're like the possums of the snake family or the colubrid family, so they like to play dead and they can be pretty moody. But so these are more of a intermediate, beginner / intermediate type snake as a pet, but they're manageable. And if you can get around that, the playing dead and being the moody, they're really nice as pets. So let's talk about different snake features. So most snakes are carnivores, which means they eat meat. Snakes don't have jaws. They have a special tendon that separates their jaw into 2 sections. That's why they swallow their prey whole, because they can't chew. Snakes can see heat because they are cold-blooded, and they eat warm-blooded, so they need to be able to see. And snakes' vision is not that good. So, and especially for snakes that are mostly nocturnal, so they have to be able to see the UV radiation and the heat emitting off of a warm-blooded creature so that they can eat it. And snakes use their tongue to smell and taste the air using a special organ in their brain called the Jacobson organ. That's why you always see snakes flicking their tongue out. And you might be wondering, well, why is it doing that? It's tasting the air. It's how they smell. Most snakes, even if they do have nostrils, it doesn't really work well. So they use their tongue in and out to they can taste the temperature, they can taste the air, they can taste the smell, they can pick up all these different things just with their tongue. Some snakes, mostly just boas and pythons, have little stubs by their tail. Those are the remains of what used to be legs from evolving from lizards. So here's a picture of the jaw, as this is a Burmese python that they're using the example of. But as you can see, I don't know if this is blurry or not. If it is, my apologies. The lower jaw is 2 pieces connected in front by an elastic ligament. Each side can move independently, as you can see here, they're moving independently. And right here would be the elastic ligament, right here. So this is why they can't chew, because it's not one whole piece like our jaw, where we like that. It's not one whole piece. It separates, and because it separates from this by way of these elastic ligament, they're able to open their mouth and stretch it, as you can see, because since it's elastic, it's like a rubber band. Stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch, but this doesn't pop like a rubber band. So it just stretches and stretches, and that's why you might see a video of a snake eating a cow, or a snake eating a huge big other snake, or a snake swallowing a crocodile, because their jaws can, and the bigger the snake is, the bigger the head is, the bigger that the jaw is, and the bigger that the ligament is, so it can stretch more. Here's a picture of the little stubs by a tail. This is, I believe, a common boa, and this is the product or the little remnants of the evolution from lizard to snake. And this is showing the Jacobson's organ as it connects to the brain, and the tongue is anything that it picks up. So the smell, a taste, a temperature. So let's say the smell, that smell or that scent, it will come on the tongue and it will travel down in the tongue into the Jacobson's organ, which will kind of like our nostrils, except it just goes straight to the brain. This is kind of like a how would I say? This is kind of like an admissions desk. It's like the scent, it has to emit itself to the brain. So it goes through the Jacobson's organ, it signs in, and then it goes into the brain, which the snake can finally say, oh, that smell is a rat that I want to eat, or that smells like, this and this and that, or the temperature is getting colder, or something like that, or I have to bask in the sun. So things like that. So that's how that might work. Here is a video that is explaining how, is an experiment explaining how snakes see. It's a little 2-minute video that we're gonna watch here. Hold up 1 second. Just test this out. There's no way. Okay. The video is not working, which is surprising because I just tested this out. Okay, we're just gonna skip the video. But snakes see by using UV radiation and seeing. If you ever put yourself in a UV camera, you can see the heat rays, and that's basically how they see. So let's compare and contrast snakes versus other reptiles. You can see in the picture you have a chameleon and the lizard over here. So let's compare to different reptiles. Number one, snakes don't have legs, and they're different from most reptiles, but have a lot of similarities. So snakes don't have legs like turtles, crocodiles, and lizards do. Most reptiles have rough scales, but a lot of snakes have smooth scales. Okay. No other reptiles can constrict like constrictors can, but all reptiles are cold-blooded and like to bask in the sun. Lizards are most closely related to snakes and can usually be found in most snake habitats. And if you saw the picture of the snake with the little stubs, that's from the evolution of lizards and them losing their legs, showing that lizards are more closely related. Turtles are herbivores, turtles are actually reptiles. Turtles are herbivores and are usually considered prey. Most turtles are slow and like to swim, as you might see in a park or lake. Unlike snakes, which are carnivores that eat meat, most snakes are usually fast. Lizards like crocodiles and chameleons, but all lizards have eyelids. As you can see, like if you look at a crocodile in the water, you might not see it, but you might see it on a video, they blink. So lizards can blink. Snakes don't have eyelids. When a snake goes to sleep, it doesn't close their eyes like a lizard might. It just sleeps with their eyes open. It looks pretty scary, but their eyes are technically closed, but they don't have eyelids to actually show that. So, which means lizards can close their eyes. And yes, snakes are the longest reptile. Crocodiles, Komodo dragons, and lizards and such things like that, they can get pretty big and pretty long. But snakes, they are the longest. The longest snake belongs to the constrictor family, which is the reticulated python. The world record for the reticulated python's length is 32 feet. And the reticulated python is the only snake that has been documented to actually have eaten a human, but only one human. So it's not, and you can actually keep those as a pet. You don't need a license to keep reticulated pythons as a pet. You can actually keep those as a pet, but I wouldn't suggest it since they get really long and you might not be able to handle it. And we're not trying to add more humans onto the documents of snakes, that snake eating a human. So As you can see here, lizard scales, they're rough, they're nice and pointy. If you ever held a lizard, it's very dry, very scaly, like rough scales. If you look at this snake here, this is a viper. Now vipers are the, if you can remember the leaf viper, those scales were kind of rough and scaly. Vipers are kind of the only snake that kind of resembles lizard scales, but this is a smooth scaled viper. As you can see, they don't scale up, or they're not spiky. They're kind of, they fold right straight, they fold straight down, and in turn them being smooth. And just because it's smooth doesn't mean it's slimy. Snakes are never slimy unless you are picking it up out of an egg and it has all the, the egg juice and all of that stuff. But snakes are not slimy. So if you touch a snake, it's not going to be slimy. It's just very smooth, very smooth. So as you can see, this is a young common boa eating a mouse, or I believe that's a rat. Yes, if you're keeping this as a pet, unfortunately, if you eat rodents, but it's constricting. Other reptiles don't do that. They just bite and swallow. And as you can see here, these are the lizard eyelids. So the eye's open, and this is the eyelid right here, and the eye is closed. Now you can still kind of see the pupil because this is kind of transparent, a transparent eyelid, but they have eyelids, so they can close their eyes. And this is a turtle eating some lettuce. Turtles are herbivores compared to snakes, which are carnivores, eating another rodent. And I believe that is a rainbow boa, if I'm not mistaken. So a snake as a pet. I've talked a lot throughout this whole presentation about, snake as a pet, snake as a pet. How do you take care of a snake as a pet? Well, snakes make great pets. They're very easy to maintain. They are not too expensive. And, so you don't have to worry about expense and all of that stuff. Snakes are cost effective. They're very quiet and don't need to be fed every day. It's not like a dog or a cat. You have to feed them every day of the week, which means that's more food that you have to buy, which can add, when you add it up all together, it's pretty expensive. Snakes only eat, if it's young, maybe 2-3 times a week at max. But as they get older, you can do like a fully grown adult snake. Let's give a common boa constrictor as an example. A fully grown common boa constrictor can probably last 2 weeks without eating, and that 2 weeks is fully digesting a meal. And then that after 2 weeks you can feed it again, which means less money being spent on food. So they're very cost effective. Snakes get used to different animals and pets. So if you got a snake and you already have a dog or a cat, it'll get used to their smell, it'll get used to their scent or something like that. But don't try to let your pets interact with your snake. So don't, especially dogs. Don't let your dog try to sniff your snake or whatever like that, or a cat try to scratch your snake and kind of mess with it, because snakes are, they don't like that. And those animals are bigger than snakes, so the snake will probably look at it as a predator, try to bite your snake or different things like not bite your snake. Your pets might try to bite your snake, your snake might try to bite your other pets, and it's not really good. So don't try to, introduce them and let that happen. The most popular snakes are in the constrictor and the colubrid families, like we said, the ball python and the constrictor family, the garter snake and the grass snake and the king snake and the colubrid families. To take care of a snake, you will need a few things. Okay. Oh yeah, most colubrids can be kept as pets. Only a few can. Actually, most constrictors can be kept as pets. You can even keep an anaconda as a pet. I believe you still have to. I believe you have to have a license for that. But you will need a few things to take care of a pet. Very simple things. For one, you will need the snake's home. You will need an enclosure. You can usually use a fish tank to do that. A nice fish tank. Now, depending on the snake that you're getting, you'll have to do your research and gauge what size tank that you will need for your snake, and if you're getting it young, what upgrades that you need to make with your enclosure as it gets bigger. You will need heating pads to go under the enclosure because snakes are cold-blooded. And sometimes if you're using a glass enclosure, you can use also an overhead lamp, so they can also, sit on one. There'll be a one area of the enclosure which is nice and warm, and then they can go bask up on a rock that you might have in there. Um, Also, you will need some decorum, some, you know, some a log, a nice tree branch, some plants. You can do live plants or fake plants, and you'll need a hide. And a hide is basically, if you ever see, like, let's say you have a log and they have those carved out logs and they're kind of like a hill, something like that. The snake can go in there, nice, be peaceful. And usually you should have a hide on the side with the heating pads, and then a side on the other side without the heating pad, so it can be cool. You will need a water dish, of course, because without water, no living thing can survive. Um, you will need bedding, because you don't want to just put your snake in with the glass and that can burn your snake if you have the heating pad like that. You'll need bedding, which we'll talk about. I have a video. Hopefully it works, because the other video did not work. And you also need a thermometer, because you don't want it to get too hot in there. So you have to regulate and you'll need a heat thermometer and a humidity thermometer, because if it's too dry, the snakes can get dried out and it cannot be good for things like shedding and certain things. So here's the video. Hopefully it's not working. I don't understand. I think it's not working because I'm sharing my screen. This video was basically going to explain how to set up your snake and the different things you might need and some other things. But I basically already told you what was in the video, but I just want.
Ahadi, you can send me the link to the video and I can share it out if you like.
Okay, well, I have the links here, but we can do that. So here's an example of a snake enclosure. As you can see, this is a really big one, but as you can see, you have logs, plants, decorum. This over here at the bottom is the different bedding, that the snake will, be slithering about in. And here's some common pet snakes if you're interested. You have the ball python, which is really common. You can find this as PetSmart at Petco. I would not recommend it though. They might be Petco is a little bit more expensive than PetSmart, but a lot of people say if they got a snake from there, their snake is sick or unhealthy, and it's not a good quality snake. So I would definitely recommend you to go to a place called NJ Exotic Pets. They have a bunch of exotic pets, including a bunch of reptiles and snakes. You can get ball pythons in many different colors and sizes, although this is a normal ball python, so this is the common color. But if you get another color like the yellow one that I showed you when talking about constrictors, that's going to be more expensive. But I believe right now a normal ball python or common ball python would be around $70, and then add that to the um, material fees, cost that you need to house your ball python in. You also have the common boa constrictor. Again, common boa constrictors are a little bit bigger, and they're a little bit more intermediate because they can get a little bit more moody. They're a little bit more moody, a little bit more snappy than ball pythons. So this is a more intermediate type snake, but if you're still interested, here you go. It's a good option. I also want to state, back to the ball python, if you do get a ball python and you realize it's not eating, do not be afraid. Ball pythons will go on eating strikes or fasts, and that is completely normal. Now, if the and eating strikes can last, might be maybe a max over a month or two, but if it goes like really long and you can see your snake's health is dwindling, it's losing weight, and it's not looking really good, you wouldn't want to take it to your vet. Now, I would suggest going to some place like Petco or PetSmart and asking who their vets are, or even like NJ Exotic Pets. If you got your snake from there, I'm going there and asking, hey, what is your vet? I need to take it for a vet, or just looking up vets that specialize in reptiles or do take reptiles. But just a quick disclaimer: so if you get a ball python and hey, it's not eating, do not be alarmed. Here is a milk snake, part of the colubrid family, that we also said. You can find these mostly anywhere. I've seen these in Petco, PetSmart. Again, I'd say I wouldn't really trust it because many people have said that they've got a sick and unhealthy snake. So I would just suggest, if you live in New Jersey, go and visit New Jersey Exotic Pets. If you live somewhere else, just look up an exotic pet store or even a specialized reptile pet store and go get your, or even look up a breeder for that matter and go get your snake from a reputable source. Again, like I said, this is another common one, the garter snake. This is a more social one. So you could probably get 2, 3, or 4 and kind of put them in one enclosure so you can get more of these. But if they start fighting, please separate them because sometimes they will not always get along. Just like humans, we don't always get along. So please separate them because one might try killing the other, and one might be successful. With garter snakes, again, you can find at your local reptile store, an exotic pet store, even Petco and PetSmart. But I wouldn't recommend it. But if that's what you do, hopefully you do get a good snake because sometimes you can get a good snake from there. So yeah, thank you for watching. That was my presentation. Here are the video links, Miss Amalia, if you want to copy that down, because I don't know how to copy it from here and kind of send it to you. So if you want to copy that down real quickly. I just saw it. Oh, go back. Okay, so there's a bunch of Q&A.
Okay, so I'll ask you the questions.
Okay.
Everyone, if you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A. If you don't want to type, you can also raise your hand, like click the raise your hand button, and I will unmute you so you can ask your question directly. Okay. So the first question I have here is, what is your favorite kind of snake?
I'd say my favorite family of snakes is I'll have two, the elapid and the constrictor family. My favorite type of snake in general is the cobra, but my favorite pet snake, if I had to have a second, would be the ball python or the boa constrictor.
Elizabeth asked, are there any venomous reptiles?
Well, we've covered the venomous snakes. There are venomous lizards. I'd say a common one is the Komodo dragon. Now, some say that it's not really venom. They don't have venom glands. It's just that their saliva is so toxic that it can be considered a venom. So yes, there are other venomous reptiles, but mostly snakes usually cover that category as far as venom. Snakes have more venomous. Lizards, like if you say a crocodile, for example, their jaw force is just so strong that, so most lizards just rely on their jaw or something like that. But mostly snakes are the venomous reptile.
Let's see. CED asks, where do snakes come from?
Where do snakes come from? Well, it depends on what snake it is. So, like I said, let's say you take a cobra, for example. You can find cobras in India, you can find cobras in China, you can find cobras in Thailand, you can find, so you can find snakes in different areas. I was giving the general area, not specific snakes. I was giving the general area. So a lapids is usually Asia, besides from the coral snake, which you can find in America. The constrictors is predominantly South America, unless, like the ball python is from West Africa, and different things like that. So
I see Matthew and Aubrey have a question. I'm going to unmute them and allow them to talk. So here we go.
okay.
Are you guys able to speak? Okay, we can't hear you. By chance, are you able to send in your question?
Hello?
Oh, hello, I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, that's perfect. So my question was, what snake do you recommend as a pet?
What snake do I recommend as a pet? Um, as far as beginner go, me personally, my favorite pet as a snake is the ball python because it gets to a size where it's manageable, but it still could be considered big. Like if I walk down the street and have my snake in my hand, people be like, "Oh, it's pretty big." So because most people gravitate towards the bigger snakes. Um, but it really depends on you. So like let's say if you want a manageable but kind of big in size snake, I'd say the ball python. But ball pythons can fall under beginner and intermediate, mostly because of their food strikes and their pickiness. um if you're just a beginner starting out and you just want something small, I would go to something in the colubrid family, so maybe a grass snake or a garter snake. And if you want something a little bigger but not that big as a constrictor, because constrictors are mostly muscle because they constrict, so that's why they perceive bigger than they are, because they have a lot of muscle. But you might want to go with a milk snake or king snake. And if you're intermediate and you already, like, let's say if you have a lizard or something, or, kind of have a little bit more experience with reptiles, I'd say maybe a boa constrictor or, something of that nature. So, but it really depends on you. So if whichever what you desire, you know. But most pet snakes are usually in the colubrid or the constrictor family, because unless you have a license and you're a certified scientific animal specialist, you can't have venomous reptiles. So it's usually constrictor or colubrid.
I also have a compliment to tell you.
Mm.
I liked how you described how like the snakes and their environments.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Matthew.
Any other questions? I see 3 Q&A questions.
Yes. Can you eat snake eggs?
Can you eat snake eggs? I'd say that's a tough one because I've never been asked that question. I'd say it's possible. Technically, you can eat anything. It might not be good for you, but technically you can eat it. But I'd say it's possible, but I would not recommend. I'd say stick to chicken eggs, or yeah, stick to chicken eggs.
And then, do snakes eat other pets?
Um, well, yeah, snakes can eat other pets. So because some people have rodents as pets, mice, rats, hamsters. If you have a snake and if it gets loose or your hamster comes in contact or one of those, yes, it might try to eat it. Um, depending on how big the snake is. So let's say you have a ball python and let's say you have a hamster, and unfortunately or somehow that hamster and that snake come in contact, and let's say the snake is hungry, it will try to eat the hamster. If you had, let's say, if you had a reticulated or a Burmese python, which gets a lot bigger, or a really big boa constrictor like an anaconda, which I don't see why anybody would have that in their house. And if you had, like, let's say, a smaller dog, and if it was hungry, it might try to eat it. So yes, they do eat other pets. But if they're hungry, yes, so they do eat other pets. But most snake owners are careful, and if they have other pets, and most snake owners, I'd suggest if you get a snake, don't get in a fully adult snake. I'd suggest get a young snake. Get a young snake, because if you do get a young snake, it will be able to it'll learn its environment, and it's not like an older snake that already lived its life. It's living its life. So if you had a hamster and a younger snake, yes, the snake might try to eat it, but if it lives long enough with the hamster, it'll kind of learn different things because they're learning creatures. I also want to say for any people out there, snakes, all animals have feelings. Okay, so no animal doesn't have feelings. Most living things do have feelings. Snakes do have feelings and can get attached to their owners. Not as much as a dog or a cat or mammals, I say in general, but it can get attached to the point where maybe only like if I don't have a pet snake, because I saw somebody ask if I had a pet snake. Like if I had a pet snake and it got attached to me, it might be where it only was like if I handled it. But if my dad tried to handle it, if my mom tried to handle it, or my friend tried to handle it, even if you tame your snake and get it used to handling, it might not enjoy it so much or tolerate it. So they can get attached, they can have feelings, and snakes, even though they're not fully domesticated, they're not going to just attack you. So, oops, low battery, we don't die. They're not just going to attack you, and snake, are usually scared of humans. What are snake babies named? Um, Usually snake babies names from what I've heard are called pups. So yeah, I believe called pups.
We have about 4 more minutes. Are there more questions or comments? Oh, I see this one says, thank you. This was awesome.
No problem. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Oh, also, everyone, if you want, I have the video links down. So if you want to copy that down and go watch the videos on your own, you can do that. The names of the videos. The first one was how to take care of. Oh yeah, I have it here. How to take care of. Wait, hold up. I can't. Oops. I can't see it because I have the.
How to take care of a snake, and then in parentheses, Petco.
Yeah, the video is by Petco, and then How Do Snakes See? This was a natural wild video, and you can both watch that on YouTube. So if you guys want to, go check it out. Thank you, Matthew and Aubrey. No problem. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'd also suggest if you're getting into reptiles and snakes, I have a few YouTube channels that I would recommend. The first one is Snake Discovery. If you want to go check them out. Another one is Clint Reptiles. And the third one is Brian Barczyk. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I think it's spelled Brian Barcyck, I believe. That's how his last name is spelled. But those are 3 good YouTube channels to learn more about snakes and reptiles, especially if you're keeping one as a pet. And if you want to go into the route of being a specialist and taking care of venomous snakes and getting a license, there's a guy named Chandler's Wildlife who does that, and he's a really good YouTube channel to go watch and check out to learn, how to take care of if you want to take care of a king cobra when you grow up. So those are some sources that you might want to check out. Any more questions?
And speaking of YouTube, this presentation is going to be available on the library's YouTube if you want to go back and review some of that information.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Ahadu. This was a wonderful presentation. I learned a lot of things about snakes that I didn't know.
I'm glad you all enjoyed it. And who knows, hopefully some of you guys might get a snake as a pet. And they're very good at that. Okay, I'm gonna stop the share and go back to Zoom.